welcome to the Dancing Bear Enlightenment Academy channel's Holistic Transformation Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Beverly, and today we have our very special guest and dear friend, Christine Breese. She is the founder of the University of Metaphysical Sciences and the Gaia Sagrada Retreat Center. Did I say it right this time?
Yes.
And we are going to talk about the upcoming summit on the 23rd of March. It's a Saturday. It will be live. Christine and I will, of course, will be there. And it's called Holistic Transformation and Healing Mastery Summit. So welcome, Christine, and tell us what you'll be talking about.
Thank you. I just want to say it's an honor to be on your summit again. I just love how you do this and how you're awesome.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to be talking about the 4 levels of healing and how if you only do one level or a couple of them and you don't do all 4, it doesn't work. And there's not just the physical aspect of healing. Sometimes people think that if they do everything right physically, then it'll work, but it doesn't necessarily work that way. You have to also do the spiritual, the emotional, and the mental part of it as well. You have to change your thinking patterns. You have to change your emotional patterns. You have to make peace with things in the past, make peace with things in the future if the anxiety is involved. And there's a spiritual aspect as well, and that's very different for each person because they have such a different spiritual path, and a lot of people have a different spiritual outlook. But making peace with your spirituality and making peace with God, really, and what that means to you. And so these 4 levels of healing, each one is such an important component, and not one can be left out. Unfortunately, that's how it works. So you have to do all the work. You can't just do some of it. And healing is a lot of inner work. And if it has manifested physically, it was in the emotional and the mental body first. And then it manifests physically if you haven't, shall we say, finished making peace with the past, or have subconscious programming running with belief patterns that don't work for you anymore. And the physical follows the mental and emotional. It follows the lead. So if you are able to change your mental and your emotional bodies, which are actual forms, they're part of your form. If you change the mental and emotional bodies and the spiritual as well, if there's any kind of spiritual interference, which happens for some people, sometimes people are, they're not at peace with this whole idea of God. They're not at peace with, maybe they're mad at God for bad things happen to good people kind of thing. And sometimes anger at God is actually a very crucial part of the healing. But if the mental and emotional body are not healed, then the physical form, because it is an after effect of the emotional and mental body, it actually cannot heal. So, and you have to do the inner work or the physical form. Even if you do everything right, it's not going to work. This is why some people heal and some people don't. Some people, they'll be resentful about people in the past right up to the end and still remain angry. Most illnesses are some disturbance of ease, some disturbance of the peace, or shall we say unresolved resentments and angers and hurts that just never really got finished. Sometimes people work on it a little bit and they're like, okay, now I just want to think about that person anymore. I don't want to think about that event anymore. I'm just not going to think about it, and try to spiritual bypass it, or emotional bypass, or mental bypass. But you have to really go in and truly finish the work to heal, especially if it's manifested physically. And if you don't manifest it, if you haven't manifested it physically yet, there is a chance that it can manifest if you don't do the work. So even a healthy person really needs to do this work now so that dis-ease, unease, is not going to manifest. So for people who are sick or people who are healthy, these exercises and these pointers I'm going to give in this talk, it's going to be useful for anybody, no matter what their health condition. So that's it in a nutshell.
I agree with that completely. Yeah, I've had and along that line a number of this is not my specialty. My specialty is not helping women get pregnant, but as an acupuncturist, a lot of my patients will come in and say, I want to get pregnant. And I do have an infertility protocol. And I tell them if we don't get you pregnant after 3 treatments, I'm going to refer you to another acupuncturist who has infertility as a specialty.
Mhm.
Every one of my patients got pregnant, but I had one who said, I'm really mad at God. And I said, well, can you forgive God? And she said, no, I'm so angry. She's the only one that miscarried. It's
I'm
true.
sorry
Your
to hear that.
babies come from God. You can't, you can't be mad at God and expect to get a blessing.
I spent a period of time being mad at God. I mean, I think it's something everybody goes through at some point in their life, that they have like an existential crisis. And that I think is a natural process for everyone to go through at some point or another in their life. Some people may not have reached that yet, or maybe they did and they sort of kind of shrug their shoulders and become an atheist.
That's what I did. Became an atheist.
But, you know, and if you're at peace being an atheist, at least you're at peace. That's the key. If that gives a person peace, that's okay. If a person is at peace with that decision to be an atheist, that's just the right path for them.
Well, it allowed me to do a lot of things and learn a lot of things I never would have learned had I been on a spiritual path.
Right.
And then when I started meditating, I had an experience with Source. But oops, really is. Not some, bearded guy on a throne. That's not my idea of Source.
Right.
Whatever your idea of Source is doesn't matter to me. It's as long as you're connected to whatever it is and you're getting that energy and you feel it.
Right.
My life changed, but that's why I tell people it doesn't matter if you're an atheist. You can
Hmm.
come through my Om for Success program as an atheist because it doesn't matter.
I agree.
You're
Whatever
supposed
puts
to
a
be an
person at
atheist.
peace, that's the key.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
not at unease anymore for
I
healing.
was I was very successful. I mean, I was a millionaire. People were jealous of me. I used to add up what I was worth while as I walked out the door, how much jewelry I had on, how many clothes. I mean, I was really into the material world and
Gosh,
very
I can't even
successful.
imagine you that way because you're such a powerhouse in the spiritual reality now.
Well, like I changed, but
Yes.
through that very materialistic period. And we had the house that my husband, when I was married, the house that we built is now worth almost $5 million in Silicon Valley.
Wow. That must have been a nice house.
It is a nice house. It was on a large acreage of land at the end of a cul-de-sac with a lot of other, large homes. Rand lived across the street from us, so we were among the famous and wealthy. So you can be successful, but I didn't know who I was and I didn't have a purpose. My purpose was just to make more money and be more of what I was. And that's why I ended up having so many near-death experiences. I've had near-death experience because I had to have my butt kicked pretty hard to wake up and pull me out of it. And I realized if I don't change, I'll die. And I kept going to doctors who said they can't help me. And then I went to another doctor that I'd known a long time. He says, you need to meditate. I started meditating and boom,
A doctor told you that.
a doctor.
That's a pretty cool doctor.
He
That's
is.
one that
Well,
understands healing.
he was a good doctor. I'd known him a long time. I didn't need him anymore, but I went to him anyway and said, this is what's going on and I don't know what to do. And he said, you need to meditate. And that did it. I started meditating and I knew who I was. I knew why I incarnated. I knew I was supposed to have gotten a divorce 10 years earlier, but I was too attached to materialism and I had to catch up. And it took me 5 years. And after 5 years, I knew, oh, you've caught up. Now you need to work on your stuff. And I had to do all that inner work.
Then comes the spiritual homework.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes we get a peek ahead of time at what our mastery looks like when we're a masterful person, and then we have to catch up to that. That's how meditation started off for me. I had an astral projection. I had all this huge just awareness come in, and then I cried for 4 days straight after my first meditation, and then I had to spend like, oh gosh, well, I'm still on the path of healing a lifetime. And I'm 58 now. And that was when I was, let's see, my first meditation was 19, maybe, something like that.
Well,
So I know what you mean, how you get a little preview.
well, I've seen through the veil since I was a kid. I interact with them. I mean, whenever I talk about them, they poke me in the shoulder. So I knew there were other dimensions or densities or whatever you want to call them. I didn't know at the time. I just read the Bible. I was raised Southern Baptist. I read the Bible and I saw through it. But
Hmm.
I was a kid. I was a kid.
Hmm.
Why don't people read the Bible like a book? And I read it like a book and I went, this is bullshit. It's full of lies. It's full of, I saw through it. For somehow I knew all this stuff. Now today, looking back, I can understand how I knew that back then, but back then I was a kid. I didn't know. I only knew what I'd been taught. And I know lies when I see them. And I went, okay, this is crap. But I took it literal. And today I have my Bible right here next to me, but I have the old King James version, not the new crap they put out where they've changed everything.
There's a lot of translations these days.
And it's full of hidden gems that are really awesome.
Yeah, I was brought up Christian, and I feel that it was very valuable. It gave me a moral compass when I was younger.
Good
And
values.
yeah, a moral compass that I still live by,
Mm-hmm.
or try to anyway. And the Christ consciousness is what all of us are really striving for, and to emulate that consciousness, emulate that example. Jesus is my hero. I like him.
I love drumming, and I'm always looking for meditation music to give to my class participants. And I just hit on this drumming thing yesterday, and I turned it on, and I was instantly on a shamanic journey, and I ended up with Jesus. And he says, this is what you need to do, and this is how you plan next year. And then just like, ah. I said, well, thank you. I agree completely. Yeah, if you connect to Jesus, you're going to get some good information. And
When I'm working with dark spirits, sometimes I have to help people with a possession or a dark spirit experience, and there's a lot of methods that I use, but the ultimate one, when there are none that work, the ultimate one is in the name of Christ, in the name of Jesus, and they cower with that energy. They just, it's over with that energy.
I
So
I had
it's a
an
powerful energy.
I had an
Powerful
experience with a
archetype.
demon once. With dark entities, I just put them into the light. You have to love everything, and you just bring them into your heart and you send them up to the light. But
Well,
you
it has to be a free will choice on their part, or it doesn't stick, though.
yeah, well,
What I do is I invite them to go home, and ask them if they are tired of being where they are. And some of them say yes, and some of them say no. When I started doing this about 20, oh gosh, it's maybe 25 years ago now, the darks, only about 25% of them would receive would accept my invitation. Because a lot of them were like, you know how to help me? Because usually what I do is I would ask them what hurt them, what got them stuck here in this consciousness loop. And they would then sometimes expose what their hurt is, or they'd get scarier to see if you would fall for it. And you just have to say, let's be authentic. I know you're really hurt, and I'm here to help you if you want to go home.
Oh,
And all you have to do is choose. What's that?
I just show them the light. They're like moths to a flame. You just turn
Yeah,
on.
well, that's great. I've tried that. Maybe it doesn't work for me. I don't know. Maybe it's a different method. But
I had one.
then what they do is they either accept it or they don't. And if they accept it, the angels come in and take them home.
Oh, that's the difference. I'm the angel sending them. No, I had one.
I love that. I'm the angel sending them. Perfect.
I had a bunch of people standing around, and there's one woman that I know really well that every time she moves to a place with dark entities. And she comes to me and says, Beverly, I moved again and I need help. And we were standing around. It's when I was in naturopathic medical school. We're all standing around in a group, and she tells me this in front of the group, and I says, well, let me check. And I just tuned into it, turned on the light, and they didn't want to go. And so I said, will you go if your loved ones are there? So I called their loved ones, and he went through. But the hair on the back of my neck stood up, and there was this cold energy that went through me and up into the light. And then I always seal the doors so they can't come back. And then I looked around and I said, did you guys feel that? Everybody in the group felt it. They felt that entity. It was so big. That's the only one that resisted just going into the light. Now, how do I do that? Because I was told to start doing it. And I said, I don't know how. And they said, yes, you do. And then all of a sudden I knew how. So I don't know if that's a gift they gave me or something, but I know one time I had a patient who was raised.
Describe your method. I mean, I'm curious.
I open a channel of light into the higher realms. And then I go like this, and you can't see my hand. I invite the entity. So the entity comes in through my heart and up and out and into the light. But I was told that you can only do that if you have unconditional love for everything. So if you're afraid of the entity or you think, oh, he's really nasty, you can't do it. If there's any kind of blockages on your part, you can't. You have to honor the dark. And without the dark, remember, dark came first. So without the dark, there's no light. Got to have dark, or there's no. Try and look at the sun and shine a flashlight at it. It doesn't work. Go out
I like that analogy.
So, but
thank you for sharing that.
With a demon, it's different. Now, the first time I met a demon, I was doing.
Yeah, what I was talking about is demons. Those are the ones I've worked with.
Yeah, that's different. That's different. And the first time I met one, he jumped out of someone at me, scared the crap out of me, and I stood there shaking. However, at the time I was working with a Taoist master, and I called him in, his soul, and he said, I can't help you, call Buddha Maitreya. So I called in Buddha Maitreya. And now he's like 6'7" and huge. And he stood in front of me, so I couldn't see what he was doing. I only saw his arms moving, because this is all in the astral plane, right? And I'm standing there crying, my energy's a mess, I'm a mess. And he turns around, and this demon is now just coiled up and sitting there. And he says, now you can do your healing. And I'm like, I can't, I'm a mess. And that's when the Taoist master stood in front of me, and he fixed my energy, and all of a sudden I was okay. And then Buddha Maitreya said, the way you deal with them is you apologize for disrupting them, you treat them with respect, and you send them love. And every time I gave that person a treatment, the little demon got smaller and smaller and smaller. And then finally he was gone. And then we went to another level in her energy field, and there was another demon there. Oh, excuse me for interrupting you. I'm terribly sorry. I'm just here to help this person, tell them what I'm doing, and I just honor them, and eventually they go away. And then we went to another level, and then she felt she was healed. And I said, well, no, you still have more work to do. She says, no, I'm healed. You can only help them when they want help.
Right. You can't break
So
the contracts.
no, I can't break the
Only the
contract.
person can.
And I didn't ask the demons to leave. I was just working on the person and their
Interesting.
energy. Yeah. So they had needles in, and I was doing my energy work while the needles are in.
Hmm.
But I've never asked them to leave. I've never done this trick. That's what I do with entities that are, out of a body.
I think in some ways, every healer, if they get to the level where they're working with dark spirits, maybe they invent their own ways of doing it.
I'm sure that's
Or
meant
the
for us.
guides show them a way that works for them.
Yeah. Because we're all different. We have different energy, different backgrounds.
Because I was shown to do this by the guides when I was astral projecting. I had to learn how to handle dark spirits, or I wouldn't be able to use that spiritual power. So I asked the guides, show me how to handle this. And that's what they showed me. And maybe that was just specifically for me. Although I've taught other people to do it and it works for them too. But
I think
yeah, I
as
think
long
we all
as you
have
show
our
them
methods.
respect, I think the secret is show them respect, give them love.
And care
Regardless.
about them. Like, because they haven't been cared about. I mean, these dark spirits have been kind of alone and sorry, the dog is barking. It's hard to get silence on here sometimes. But he's a good guard dog, and probably they're moving the cows out in the field.
My dog.
But yeah, I think everybody comes up with their own methods and maybe takes a method and changes it and personalizes it a little bit too.
Probably. I know the first time I encountered entities, I hadn't done any shamanic training. It was early in my path. I was a hypnotherapist first. So my daughter wanted me to hypnotize her. So I had a little form and I said, fill out the form. And she took it and then threw it on the floor. And I picked it up and I said, did you want to do this? She said, oh yeah. And I handed her the clipboard and she threw it on the floor. Well, the third time she did that, all of a sudden I realized she must have attached entities.
Hmm.
So I just
That's a sure
opened the
sign.
front door and I said, please come with me. And I ushered him out the door. Somehow I knew there were two. And I ushered him out the door and I says, you're not welcome here, and shut the door. And then she was fine. And then she said, well, I'm fine now. I don't need to be hypnotized. That was my first encounter. And
Hmm.
then later, people would ask me, when I was in my shamanic training, people would say, do I have an entity? And for some reason, I would just put my hand on their back and close my eyes and say yes or no. And
Hmm.
I would know. So it just kind of evolved. And you're right. I think everybody has their own way of figuring it out. But love and respect, I think, is the bottom line.
I do too. And one of these things about how when healers just know, uh, I think that these are things we might have learned in past lives or other dimensions. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't know how I know some of the things I know, or how I know how to heal this or that. And I believe that some of these are bleed throughs from other lives that we have developed these skills, or from the other side when we brought something through with us for certain lifetimes.
And we get downloads. I get a lot of downloads.
Oh yeah, downloads are cool.
You get a
Oh, I
download.
just got a whole
What was
library
that?
section of
I
more.
don't know. Okay. Yeah. The third eye, what you get, immediately what it is. But with the download, you have to ask, you have to work with it. And sometimes all of a sudden you just know something. Well, where'd that come from?
Hmm.
Was the download you got the other day.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think that's where some of it comes from. But I know some of it is from past lives because I remember my past lives. So when you start remembering and you know who you were, what kind of tickles me is people that think they were famous in a past life, because if you're in a past life, you're famous in this life.
I think there's every person must have a moment, especially if they take psychedelics, that they think they might have been Jesus or they might have been Cleopatra. And I think the reason that that happens is because these are archetypes, and these are like certain forms of personality, certain forms of mission, purpose, whatever. And I think that all of us have some kind of connection to every archetype in some way or another. And when we tap into our past lives, or we tap into this Akashic library, really every life that has ever been lived is one of our lifetimes. If it's all oneself living all these lifetimes, then
Everybody.
it actually goes to reason that when you walk in that Akashic library and pull any life book off the shelf, it's yours. There's a part of you that lived it. If you're part of this huge God self, this one self, this singularity that has divided itself down into all these individual ideas of individual, then you find that every life that has ever lived, in a way, if you were to visit that lifetime, walk that lifetime, explore that lifetime, it would feel like it's yours if you were at the God self level. So when people think that they were somebody famous in the past, in a way, they were.
Buddha Maitreya says if you take on the energy of someone from the past, you can make that person a part of who you are today. So you become an incarnation through that adoption of their energy, which is basically another way of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Sometimes what I do is if I want to understand something, I'll go back to that person and talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
When part of our shamanic training was pick someone famous and go back and be with them. And for some reason, I picked Michelangelo. I didn't know anything about him, but I thought, well, he painted the Sistine Chapel. I want to go talk to him. So that's who I went to. And when I came back, I said, he took me inside of a statue and showed me an inside of a piece of marble and showed me the statue inside the marble. And one of the women is an art major, and she came up to me afterwards. She says, do you know anything about him? I said, no. She said, he used to tell people he could see the statue inside the rock.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
So going back and
See how that
talking
could
to
work.
them, yeah, you can get all kinds of cool stuff directly from them.
Interesting. I have to try that. I haven't tried that. Thanks for the idea.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So if you want to understand something from the past, go there, ask them, be respectful, of course. Don't go to somebody you don't like or something. Don't go and have a fight
Try
with
to
them.
wreak havoc.
Yeah. Uh,
Remember to use your power benevolently, or it comes back to you pretty quick.
well, that's what
Try and
happened.
keep your karma clean.
That's what happened to Solomon. I was really confused because I was in a mystery school and their symbol was the seal of Solomon,
Hmm.
supposedly the wisest man that ever lived. And yet he did all of
King
this,
Solomon of the Bible.
Solomon of the Old Testament. And I wanted to know, why is it some things speak highly of him and some people and texts, old texts, do not speak highly of him? And I thought, oh, am I in the wrong mystery school because they have his seal as their symbol, as their logo? And what I found out was what he used to do is he would call on elementals. Now, my training said never work with the elementals because they don't know right from wrong, but you can control elementals. And in an early meditation, I was told, don't work with elementals. And they showed me the damage I did when I tried working with elementals. And so that's what Solomon would do. He would open the astral plane, pull the animals down, give them instructions. That's why he was so magical and so powerful. And then he would send them back. And the ring, the seal, is how he would reseal them so they couldn't come back out. So that was a source of his power. But what happened in later years is this is what happens to you if you're not careful and remain humble, is power corrupts.
Right.
And you use the power for things that are maybe not quite as ethical as they should be until the line keeps moving, and now you're doing things that are unethical because you've moved the line. And that's what happened to him.
Well, and everybody gets a misuse of power lifetime, and more than one. And and then
Even
comes a
if
string
it's
of
not a
lifetimes.
lifetime,
What's
even
that?
if it's not a lifetime, we'll still do it in this life.
Right. And so, and then usually comes a string of lifetimes afterwards where there's a reckoning, shall we say, where you experience the other side of what you've done.
Mhm.
And the way that cycle ends, the misuse of power course ends, is a life of service and using the power benevolently and not being tempted to use power not in the correct ways, shall we say. And if you pass that, you get to, a lot of times that's one of the last courses that a soul will take before it graduates from the human reincarnational cycle. And then the soul can come back if it wants to, because it's fully learned how to use its power correctly, or not. Sometimes they just want to go to a vacation planet and have an umbrella drink for 1,000 years and rest, because it's a little exhausting to do a journey like this for, say, 2,500 or 3,000 lifetimes, or some people are even on 5,000 lifetimes. So
It gives me hope because I know I'm on that path of redeeming myself from a lot of stuff I did in past lives.
yes, I'm in that same path right now. It feels like the last lifetime in the reincarnational cycle. This is it. If I keep it all clean, if I don't make mistakes, and I mean, as long as you learn from your mistakes, I mean, it's not like you have to be perfect and not ever make a mistake with misusing your power. Just try not to do it big, because then there's a lot of repercussions. But if you misuse your power in little ways, you learn from that. And if you didn't say the right thing, or maybe you didn't process your emotions around that quick enough so that you weren't in a place where you hurt yourself with resentments, if you are able to use your power benevolently for that lifetime, you get to graduate, and then you have the full education, because all the reincarnational lifetimes are actually about learning about how to use power correctly. That's what it's really about. And this whole shadow side of the shadow work area of God's mind, it's a small portion of what God is doing with its imagining of all of this. It's a small area of what God is working out in itself, is to try to learn how to use its power and what the cause and effects are in the idea of a paradigm that has cause and effect and dark and light and duality. There's trialities, there's quadralities, there's singularities, there's all kinds of different realities set up with different parameters for God's self to put itself into these little, shall we say, exploring self lessons that it sets up for itself, because it's really a growing entity. God is not this static thing that is just like, oh, and I'm perfect and everything's all hunky dory. No, this whole thing is God trying to find out who it is and what it's made of. If my name was so and so, and this is my collection of weaknesses and strengths, and this is my culture and language and my history and my challenges and the hurts and the successes and everything in between. If this was it, what would I do? Who would I be in that? How would I handle that? And that is, your life is the answer to that question. All of us, all of our lives are the answer to that question. So God is on a journey of self-exploration, trying to answer these questions about, okay, if I'm tempted to misuse my power and I do, what happens? If I behave myself and use my power well, what happens? So it's all a adventure in consciousness, and God's kind of eating popcorn watching itself go through all this, thinking, well, I got a little bit of craziness to work out here.
Well, let's talk about the summit again. So on the
Okay.
summit,
We
Christine's
did
gonna,
get off on some esoteric
yeah,
things, huh?
wild stuff. Well, but that's what we're going to do at the summit, because the summit has two parts for each speakers. There's only 6 speakers, so it's only going to be about 6.5 hours. So each speaker will be there for an hour. And first, they're going to give a talk on a topic, and you heard Christine's topic. And then they're going to do something interactive with the group. Christine has decided she and I would do a talk like she and I just did. And look how deep we got on several different subjects.
And I think that's something that happens with you and I. We go off
couple
on
of
these deep
couple of
things sometimes.
spiritual geeks here.
Oh, I'm proud of that title, spiritual geek.
And we'll be in chat. Everybody will be on Zoom and in chat. You can ask questions. All the speakers will be there and will help answering. And so that's the summit. And I will post the link down below. And it's the holistic not skip that. The link is holistictransformationsummit.com if you're listening to the podcast, but otherwise on YouTube, it'll be down below. And we really look forward to you. And today's the last day for the early bird discount if you want to be a VIP and get the special gifts. And Christine, you have your free gift is some courses and meditations on your website, but you also have a $150 gift. Tell us about that.
Oh gosh, I forgot what we put. It was one of the courses, right?
It was one of the courses, yeah.
It
But
was the divination skills one, or
um
I'm sorry, I forgot which one.
no,
I didn't do that part. My manager Judy did in the office, so I don't know what course she picked.
Let's see. Let me get to the
Well, it's gonna
summit
be
folder.
juicy.
Summit
I
folder.
promise.
Here we go. VIP gift is divination systems. Yes. So that was your free gift, is divination systems.
Yeah. Learning how to use divination systems to get answers, like the pendulum, the runes, the tarot cards, all kinds of systems. I think there's like 80 or 100 systems covered in there. So that'll give some people some. Oh, sorry about the construction noise in the background. My electrician showed up unannounced today, and we've been waiting for him to work on something for a while that hasn't been getting worked on, and we're like, oh, okay, thank you. So sorry about that. It's occasional. It won't be happening on the summit day, I promise. I'll tell him not to come that day.
Well, if you have any questions for Christine, come to the summit. It's free, and she'll be in Zoom with you, and we'll answer your questions. So, Christine, thank you so much for always supporting the Dancing Bear Enlightenment Academy and my summits.
Oh, thank you, Beverly. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Have a beautiful day.
Do you have any closing words you want to say?
Oh, I would encourage people to really, really look deep when it comes to healing, even if you're not sick yet, even if you haven't gotten any kind of unease that has manifested in the body. Keep your plate clean. Take this stuff off your plate, really, so that you're making room for the new things. Don't hold grudges. Don't hold any kind of angers at people. I'm going to walk you through a process for releasing resentments, which is really the core of any illness and any depression or anxiety. It's really the core, is holding these things from the past that just do not serve you, and they take up space. They take up space in your heart. They take up space in your mind. And if it's taking up space, you don't have space for the heaven that you can experience. And if you make space by taking these things out, making peace with it, saying, okay, that happened. What did I gain from it? I did gain something. I promise you, every hurt and injury, you gained something. Every person you're mad at, every situation you're mad at, somehow you gained something from that. And you take that gift and forget the rest now. And don't hold that person responsible for hurting you, because usually people aren't trying to hurt each other. It's accidental. And you might have hurt them too, and you didn't mean to. And, sometimes those hurts go both ways, and they're holding animosity toward you too, because they feel like you didn't do it right either. So to give you a little bit of a preview of that, just, it's about identifying the lessons. It's about realizing what the injury is, looking for the subconscious programming that might have resulted from that experience, and then releasing, forgiving, and even getting to the point of no blame in the first place. That person just didn't know any better. And life used that person as a vehicle for a lesson that life, the guru, the ruthless guru that's called life, was trying to deliver to me, or the skill or the experience that was going to deepen me and make me compassionate. And then the last two steps are wishing for that person's well-being. That's the part where a lot of people get stuck, wishing for somebody who really hurt you, wishing for them to have a happy life. And then the last thing is gratitude for the experience. It's easy to be grateful, but for the easy thing, for the good things, but when you're grateful for the lessons and the hard stuff, then you're starting to really realize what gratitude is. So that's what I would say in a nutshell at the end.
I agree. Wise words. So thank you, Christine, and thank you all for listening to us today. We hope to see you at the summit. And remember to be the light you want to see in the world.